Hello, and welcome to the Who Asked for This podcast, the topical and nonsensical podcast hosted by me, John. And today I've got Mike with me.
Hello, John. You alright, mate?
All right, Mike. So, for anyone out there who doesn't know, me and Mike are cousins. We're both quite like-minded in the way that we're very big music heads.
Definitely, yeah. We spent a lot of time together as kids as well, didn't we? And we shared a lot of common interests regarding music, not just Korn, but nu metal in general. You know, different bands, sort of Disturbed. You know, bands like that.
Yeah, we certainly did. But today we're going to talk about Korn that definitely had a huge impact on myself and you as well as kids growing up. So this episode will probably just be more of a just kind of talking about our experiences listening to the band and how we got into them and some of the weird kind of obsessive behaviours that kind of we adopted through listening to them.
Yeah, they're a very interesting band, a long running and storied career they've had. Many peaks and troughs throughout the careers we'll definitely get into. High points and some very, very low points as well. But yeah, as like I said before, as kids we were both huge fans of this band. You took the obsession to a bit of a different level to me with the whole Issues doll and badges and memorabilia and he's sat there right next to me as we speak. He's battered and bruised, just like the Issues doll on the front cover of the album. It's like I said, I'm looking forward to getting into the discussion, getting our teeth into the history of this band.
I think, first of all, we need to kind of get into Korn themselves as a band. Obviously, if you want to know who Korn are, Google them.
Not many people who listening to this will be unfamiliar with the band, I would imagine. I'm sure you've all at least heard of them. You know, heard big tracks such as Here to Stay, Freak on a Leash, Blind. They're a well-known enough band, aren't they?
I'd certainly say so, but at the same time, and kind of other reasons I wanted to kind of dedicate an episode, well, this is probably going to be multiple episodes to them, is for such a big band that did eventually end up becoming like a household name. It's kind of funny how they're like, compared to their like peers and their, all the other bands that kind of came out alongside them, they're not very spoken about, and they've kind of fallen a little bit to the wayside. I know they've kind of made a bit of a comeback with younger kids these days, but I think it's kind of like when people talk about Slipknot, it's like everyone knows who Slipknot is. But when you talk about Korn, like that, like no one really kind of knows the backstory and the history. And to me, it's like it's when it comes to bands and like kind of their bizarre kind of choices in their careers and stuff like that, I certainly think Korn do take the crown on being a very kind of strange band. But just to really briefly summarize Korn up, they're a 5-piece. Well, they were a 5-piece. I think they're currently down to a 4-piece. They formed in the early 90s from Bakersfield, California, and they were kind of pioneers in their own way, I would say.
Definitely pioneered the nu metal genre. No one else sounded like Korn when they first came out with that debut album. It was completely unheard of in metal for a metal band to be wearing, Adidas tracksuits and stuff like that, and scat singing and rapping and stuff like that. And it was, to credit to them, they really were pioneers for that sound. Like a lot of bands copied them who came after, like Cold Chamber, who were just god awful. But Korn really did break new ground, especially with that first album and Life is Peachy as well.
Yeah, I think probably some of the biggest bands that kind of came from Korn and were influenced by them were like Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and the likes of that. So yeah, they kind of pioneered the nu metal kind of genre, this kind of post-grunge kind of alternative metal, which was quite looked down upon by more conservative type metal fans.
Nu metal has never been a genre that has been respected in sort of music circles, music snob circles, and it ran parallel to a genre that was respected in them circles, which was grunge, obviously, and they came up alongside bands like Nirvana in the early 90s and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, bands that are talked about very highly. So the nu metal bands were sort of looked at from, obviously we didn't grow up during that time, but it seems like the nu metal bands of that era were looked upon as like, it was like a lower class of listeners than than the music snob elite and stuff like that. There's a bit of a classism going on there, I think.
There was definitely like gatekeeping and elitism in the metal scene, especially growing up. I definitely witnessed it. Certain bands were considered, if you listen to them, you weren't like a true fan of metal and stuff like that.
I had that. I definitely had that. A person who I won't mention, who I was good friends with in school, was on the other side of that. He was into sort of death metal, black metal, Viking metal. and he used to sort of take the piss out of me because I listened to Korn and Disturbed and stuff like that. But it's one of them things, isn't it? It's a bit of banter, but people did feel that way about nu metal. It wasn't respected. It was sort of like, oh, if you listen to nu metal, you're sort of not really a metalhead and things like that. So tongue in cheek a lot of the time, but it was people did believe, when they said things like that.
That was something that didn't really go away completely because like that's always kind of been there in metal. Like obviously when emo hit the scene.
Yes, definitely later in the 2000s. Yeah.
Let's tell our kind of Korn origins, so to say. So Mike, what was your very first, if you can remember, your very first exposure to the band Korn?
I was trying to think of this in preparation for this podcast, and for the life of me, I couldn't pinpoint one specific moment, but I do remember seeing the Here to Stay video. It was on all the time on Kerrang TV and on Scuzz TV as well. And I think that was my first introduction to Korn, is seeing the video for that, and it was just quite a shocking video. Really, it's not my favourite Korn song in the world, which we'll get into later, but it was definitely a video that sort of made me stop in my tracks and think, wow, like that's something worth checking out about this band, because I hadn't heard the down-tuned drop A guitars. Such a heavy, crunchy sound at the time. At the time, I was only into pop punk and stuff like that, as most kids are, pre-teens and stuff. So Korn, I started getting into a band, System of a Down, just after that. But Korn was the first like heavy band that sounded heavy and sort of like dirty. It's Here to Stay's got like that dirty, grimy sound to it, hasn't it? And something about that just drew me in. But again, specific moments, I can't really pinpoint one. I just remember seeing the Freak on a Leash video as well, and Here to Stay on the telly, and I dived down the rabbit hole from there.
I can't put a date on when it actually was when I first heard it, but it would have definitely been Freak on a Leash. Like you said, it would have definitely been on Kerrang. I think when I'd get up and get ready to go to school in the mornings, I'd put on like the music channels and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was when I got home from school, I'd put Scuzz or Kerrang straight on, and that's where I'd get my sort of me nu metal fix.
I remember I'd always enjoy it when Evanescence Bring Me to Life would come on.
Oh yeah, bet you did.
All the classic early 2000s little classic tracks like that. But I remember Freak on a Leash came on. It was similar to you. It was like, this sounds very unique.
Definitely, yeah.
A bit strange and a bit weird, but it was intriguing, and I certainly didn't hate it. And that wasn't what got me on board with them straight away. I think at the same time, similar to yourself, I was getting like put onto System of a Down and all these other bands. See, I was always kind of like listening to music that was from the generation kind of before ourselves, before that.
Yeah.
I was very big to like Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses and like the stuff like that. I was starting to like branch more into more kind of like, well, at the time feels like ancient now, but at the time, like, modern rock music.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, definitely for the time, it was a modern sound. Even in the 2000s, as a genre, it was booming in the mid to late 2000s and stuff, wasn't it? Even though Korn might have been a little bit past the prime, other bands were coming up. Keep mentioning Disturbed, but they were another band that was a gateway for me into the nu metal sound, as I'm sure they were for a lot of other people.
I think the thing is with Korn is like, I didn't go out straight out and like start like getting onto all their music, but I think they were like on rotation in my like playlists and like on my MP3 players. Back in the day when an MP3 player would hold about 30 tracks.
Portable CD players, don't forget.
They were the jam too, but I think the thing was like, obviously I would spend my kind of like what money I would get as a kid on buying CDs. And then when we kind of got more internet savvy and got on the internet and started like talking to our friends and stuff on like MSN, if there was a particular song that you liked that you heard from like Corner example, you'd say to your mate like, oh, if you got any Korn tracks, send them over.
Yeah.
So I think I did have a few Korn tracks, like in my iTunes or whatever it was, my music library. And I think just that off a whim, I think the first Korn album I ended up buying, just going like, well, I like quite a few of these tracks, so I'll get onto it. It must have been Issues.
Yeah, I think Issues was one of the first albums I bought as well as a physical CD. I did own all of the Korn studio albums eventually, but I'm pretty sure Issues was the first one. And when I saw it in HMV, I was like, I've got to pick that up.
Yeah, I think I picked up Greatest Hits along at the same time as well. And again, like, they were on my iTunes and I listened to them, but I hadn't really got into that pure, like, fandom yeah, they were just kind of like a band on the side that I was like listening to.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, with the singles were on, like I said, on my iPod on shuffle and stuff like that. I'd listen to the singles and I knew that I liked the band, but Issues, I think, was the first album I picked up and listened to from start to finish.
So I'm just trying to think of like when the fandom, when the Korn earworm really started to burrow deep inside my skull.
I can't pinpoint a moment. Personally, I can't pinpoint a moment. I just woke up one day and I was a Korn fan.
I think it was similar, but I think what happened was, and we will get into all these albums later on, or even in other episodes. Is I think at the time they released their like latest album at the time, which was Untitled, which looking back is a bit of a hot button topic album, but at the time I fucking loved it. Like I listened to it while I fucking brushed my teeth in the morning. I thought it was a masterpiece.
You certainly did love that album.
I think during that time in my life, like, I was, a teenager, and it was kind of like, having kind of like the prime of me childhood, so to say. Things were going really well, I was getting into relationships and hanging out with friends and stuff like that. And then I remember getting dumped.
Oh,
Yeah, R's, big R's and hugs, please. I got dumped, and I was like absolutely like devastated over it, because this was like pretty much the fucking girl I'd like lost my virginity to. And
wow! Here we go. Personal stories coming up on the Korn podcast for you.
well, that's it. That's what Korn's all about, isn't it? It's sharing your emotions in a raw and powerful way. So I was like distraught, and this Untitled album came out, and it's kind of you laugh now. It's kind of dark, more like emotional kind of themes. Really like struck a chord in me at the time, and I just it really helped me through that difficult breakup. But
Korn saved my life.
Korn did save my life, because if Korn went there, I would have had to have probably listened to something else.
Yeah. Something else with similar themes of heartbreak. Yeah. There wasn't any of that around at the time, was there?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the peak of the Black Parade around that time. So I think that's when it really burrowed into my brain that I was like a Korn fanatic. And then, as I say, like I was a bit old school me. So whereas like most people had like LimeWire or like programs like that installed on their laptops, I didn't, because we just had like a family computer in the computer room, and my dad like held it down like Fort Knox. Like obviously he had like admin control, so there was no downloading any dodgy little programs like LimeWire or anything like that.
Yeah, same.
So I would buy the CDs out of what money I get, kind of pocket money and a paper round at the time, stuff like that, and just completely out of order. Anytime I go to the shop, like the HMV, I'll pick up an album. So I'll probably get like Follow the Leader, and then the next week I'll probably get like See You on the Other Side and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
He basically just eventually got into this absolute obsession where I just had to own everything that the band had made or created. Or
some of the things you owned, I was like, where the hell did you get that from? The badges and like the bag full of badges, you remember? And the patches as well. The Korn patch. You picked them up from like Quiggins in Liverpool or something.
Yeah, I think I did. I think so. So I think that some of the weirdest stuff I ended up having in my collection was obviously the Korn doll, which I think was sold. God knows where it was actually sold, but it was obviously kind of brought out at the same time as Issues. I had the special editions of most of the CDs, which I'd find in like second-hand record stores and stuff like that.
I'm just looking at this Korn doll that you mentioned here. This is the original Korn doll that you owned, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is from the year 2000. 2000 Living Toys, LLC, handmade in China. I mean, who else listening to this podcast owns an original Issues doll from 2000? Please email in or anything, because I'd be interested to know if anyone out there does actually own that.
Imagine being a child working in a sweatshop making them dolls.
Oh, amazing. What a thought.
Oh, God, I feel sorry for them. So the obsession went on, and it got to the point where like I just became this like such an irritating person when it came to music, because like in my eyes, in my deep down in my heart, I thought Korn were the one and only, the greatest band. I thought they shit. Yes. I thought they shit on the Beatles. I thought they shit on Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. Or you think of it, like, I thought Monkey could shred better than Jimi Hendrix ever could.
Yeah. I know what you mean. To the point where you even made a point of showing your dad, didn't you? Oh, I've got this band. And your dad's a big classic rock fan, and he's, you know what I mean? He's a big classic rock nut, isn't he? Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin and all that sort of stuff. I don't think he'd ever dream of listening to a song with scatting, singing, or bagpipes in it in a new metal track. But I believe you've shown him the song Chutes and Ladders one time. What was his reaction to that?
I did. So, like, as you say, my dad was probably one of my biggest, like, kind of influences for the reason, like, I'm so big into music now. Everything that I got into, I kind of got into through, him playing the music in the cars and stuff like that. So obviously when it kind of got to the point where they kind of start branching out by myself and getting into more, contemporary modern music and stuff like that, I felt it was in the same level as the bands that he listened to.
Yeah.
So I would, like, when he'd play me stuff, going, right, I'm gonna show you the Doors now, son. Listen to the Doors. And I was like, Dad, I've got something you have to listen to. You've probably never heard bagpipes in a rock and roll song, but you are about to right now, Father. So I go upstairs.
And there's also a surprise after the bagpipes, isn't there?
It is. So if you haven't heard the song Chutes or Ladders, basically has this kind of like eerie, kind of like atmospheric bagpipe introduction, which does sound very cool, to be fair. But then it goes into basically like nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhyme lyrics.
The nursery rhymes are sung in kind of like the way of like Korn, an alternative metal band, would sing them. So it's kind of like this creepy, like, hang around the roses.
It's all very creepy, isn't it? And like John Davis sort of like, it's a good song. I won't spoil anything for the album, for the deep dive and stuff, but upon listening to this album in preparation for this podcast, this song was actually one of the songs that stood out to me as one of the better songs on the album. It's got a good chorus, it's got a good sort of groove to it. The bagpipes at the start, they go on a little bit, they sort of drag on a little bit, but then the nursery rhyme lyrics start, and you just have to laugh a little bit because where did that come from?
Back in the day, we loved that, like me and me mates and stuff like that. And we're like, this is so cool, man. Like, whoa, he's doing nursery rhymes, but he's being angry. This is crazy. So it comes on. I thought my dad would appreciate kind of like, that there's bagpipes. There's a bit of culture in this.
Yeah.
a bit of something to talk about. So I put it on, and the bagpipes start, and the grungy down-tuned guitars start rattling away. And he's kind of got that quizzitive look on his face. He's absorbing it in. He's taking it in, and then out of nowhere, he hears "Ring Around the Roses."
Oh God!
And he just cracks out a little burst of laughter. It fucking broke my heart. I was devastated. I really wanted him to like it.
It's brilliant. I love that story.
Yeah, so it was one of them. It was like, it kind of felt like me against the world. It was like, Korn don't get enough respect, and I fucking love Korn, and everyone else needs to like Korn. And like whenever I'd meet new people, I remember like, I'd be like, oh, did you like Korn?
Yeah. No one else understands me. No one else understands Korn, the genius.
It'd kind of be like, it would either be one or two things. It'd be like, oh yeah, like Freak on a Leash and that, yeah, cool, yeah. Or it'd be like, oh, they're fucking terrible.
Yeah, they're not real metal.
So in my search for Korn knowledge and Korn memorabilia and anything by Korn, I'd searched the World Wide Web, and I came across Korn Haven, a Korn utopia, a fan website known as cornspace.com.
Famous Korn Space. I was never a member of Korn Space, but I used to get a lot of information about what was going on there from you.
Yeah, it was basically like a fan run site, and it kind of had like daily news. So like, even if one of the band members like sniffed or farted, it would kind of like get reported and stuff like that. And they had
stalkerish, like
they had like, to be fair, they did have good archives of like all like kind of past interviews and film live concerts, and they even had like B-side tracks and tracks that they'd only exclusively played once on radios and never before. So
Korn Space still going?
No, so it's shut down, and it's dead hard to find any information about it now. But there was drama going on in the Korn Space realm. So I think what happened was, obviously Korn's career started kind of spiraling a little and going a bit off the rails.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that was causing like a bit of tension in the kind of whoever the admins, whoever run that website. And I think it was kind of like, they would start to go off the band a bit, stuff like that. So I think on the group, because it had like a chat room, I remember like the little chat room on the side and stuff like that. And I think they started being a bit more open to kind of like shitting on Korn a bit and like dunking on them. I think that's a problem in a lot of fandoms you find, is that you get these mega fans who, you can't say a bad word about like the band. Like every album has to be a masterpiece. And it's like, to be a fan, there is a level of like, you do have to be critical. You've got to know when they're at the best, and you've got to also know when they're not at their best. Like
100%. I mean, what is the point in being so blindly loyal to anything that you just ignore any flaws, whether it's films, whether it's music, a specific band in this instance? I mean, we're both huge Iron Maiden fans, for instance, and we have endless fun taking the piss out of some of their worst material. We can laugh about how bad certain albums and certain songs are from that band still to this day. But I get the impression that with a lot of people who sort of lurked on Korn space, you'd be hunted down, wouldn't you, if you said anything negative whatsoever about the band or a song or anything.
Well, I think that's what was going on, and then I think they managed to actually get in contact with some of like Korn's management to do like an interview or something like that with the band. But because they'd like kind of badmouthed them and made a bit of fun of them, I think that kind of got leaked to the management or whoever's involved in dealing with them kind of things at Korn. So I think they obviously dipped out the interview. I think after that, they kind of just gave up and shut down the website.
Yeah.
Not a day goes by that I don't think about that website.
Yeah, you did. You spent a lot of time there, I think, didn't you?
Because they'd even have flash games on it and everything, and if you played the flash games long enough, you'd get Korn points that you could spend on downloading a bootleg live album or something like
Incredible.
that.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, they are a band, like I said, they're a band with a very long and interesting history, have developed proper cult-like following, haven't they? A huge fan base, a very possessive fan base. They sort of like, they take things to another level of fandom, the Korn fans, don't they?
Like, as I say, I'm still in quite a few like Facebook groups and stuff like that, and I think what we'll get into in the next couple of episodes is that I kind of eventually started to move away from like being like megally obsessed with Korn, but I always kind of kept that kind of piece of them in my heart. I always kind of felt like I had that loyalty to a band that obviously I dedicated so much time to. I think with yourself is when you tapped out, you really tapped out, didn't you? Like you didn't listen to any of the albums or really follow any of the news or anything like that.
No, I really did sort of move on from nu metal in general around the early 2010s. And obviously Korn had just put out a couple of albums back to back, which I just had no interest in and thought that they were, well, they did nothing for me, basically. I won't spoil anything, but we will get into the discography deep dive. So yeah, I moved past nu metal around the early 2010s, and it was a long time before I listened to them again. And it was actually in preparation for this podcast when I decided to go back through every single one of their albums, studio albums, so not like live and rare or like the greatest hits with the weird wand cover on it or anything like that, or unplugged, just the core studio albums from start to finish. You hung on to the coattails for a little bit longer than you checked out the albums like Paradigm Shift when they came out, and obviously the latest few albums which I'd had no exposure to whatsoever. So it was really interesting actually to listen to the newest Korn material with a fresh set of ears and judging it purely off my opinions now as an adult rather than having any nostalgia bias from when I was a child affecting my reviews. So it was, I had a lot of fun with the discography deep dive.
It's. I feel like it was worth getting back into them because I definitely think they do improve. I think in the next episode we will be doing a full kind of discography summary of our thoughts of each album and a few little tales and anecdotes from that era. But I think before we wrap this up, I've got one like quite funny Korn related story in particular that I think is worth. Do you remember when we went down to the market and there was like all them market stalls?
Market in Witness Market. Oh, go on.
So we went down to the Witness Market because there was a bit of a, I think what someone, your dad or your mum may have quoted as a mosher shop.
Mosher shop. Yes, I remember that stall, yeah.
So we go down, like, let's check out the cool mosher shop. I think that's something we've completely missed. I think that needs an episode all of its own, that mosher culture. We've got into it a bit, but we can definitely talk about that.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
the fucking word feels horrible to say. Mosher. There was a Mosher shop in Widnes Market.
Which market?
We trailed down to this Mosher shop, and it's a fucking load of shit. It's obviously all like kind of bootleg, fake kind of merchandise. It's all like printed on, like cheaply printed on t-shirts and stuff like that. And there's all these like badges and packets, and like obviously the badges are just like homebrewed, like fake little badges. And there was like a set of 4 Korn badges, and it's the price tag on it was 50p. So obviously I'm like, 50p for these badges, yeah, cool. More fucking Korn shit to whoa, cat almost spilt over my drink then. So I go to the counter with these badges and like 50p, and she starts laughing at me and like proper cackling.
Oh God, no, I don't remember this. Was I there?
You were. She started like cackling, and then she turned around to like talk to like the woman who was in the store next to her to tell her how much I thought these were. All down her fucking pants, on her ass going down. There was like chewing gum that got stuck to it.
What on earth? How do I not remember that? Widnes
I
Market.
remember you pointing it out as well. I will see you next time.
Looking forward to it.
Hey everyone, it's just me here, just doing a quick outro on this episode because I ended up trimming about 15 minutes of it. We were trailing off on different topic, and I'd like to save them for another episode. So thanks for watching. The next episode I do with Mike is a summary of all the Korn albums. Hope you look forward to that one. Do apologise for any audio issues in this episode. There's been quite a few teething problems that I've still been trying to figure out. If you can't hear them, then I've probably fixed them, so just ignore me. Okay? Alright, thanks for listening. Bye. See you next time.